Right, welcome back to my dividend slash growth investment portfolio channel, where I'm going to be taking a look at the top winners and the top losers within my portfolio this week and just see what caused them to travel in the direction that they did. But first, I'm going to be taking a glance at my 4 dedicated pies that I've split my overall pot into and just kind of gauge at how well they've been performing against my expectations. So without further ado, let's get into that. Similar to last week, the performance of my pies are aligning to my expectations, with my dividend pie suffering the most. And if I actually go into it, we can see that I'm really suffering at the hands of BAE Systems, Kimberly-Clark, who had their poor earnings announced this week, AT&T, who had a good earnings call this week, and also Cisco. However, this also presents a good buying opportunity for some of them. As of right now, I still think they're good companies, and so from my point of view, they're cheap, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. My other pies, even though they have fallen this past week, are still in the green, so not too much to touch on there. So in that case, let's start by taking a look at my top winners for this week. Uber was one of my top losers in the last video after developing a bearish daily pattern last week, and it seems as if it had decided to make up for some of those losses this week. There wasn't any good news that I could particularly find that may have caused this uprising. They did, however, offer $1.2 billion to one of their ride-sharing rivals in FreeNow, which is jointly owned by BMW and Daimler. It seems like Daimler is happy to sell the business, but BMW are the ones in a relationship that are far more reluctant to do so. FreeNow actually merged with a French company called Captain. Well, I'm guessing because it's French, it's pronounced Captain or something like that, which was actually the second largest ride-sharing service in the UK, and their primary aim was to take on Uber. So by proposing this acquisition, they're essentially eliminating their rivals, increasing Uber's presence in Europe, and that could obviously make them a more dominant force within the ride-sharing market. In other news, Uber, as well as Lyft, are being told by the state of California to classify their drivers as employees. Now, the proposition won't go into effect right away because there is a voting initiative called Prop 22 that will appear on the November 3rd voting ballot, and that could exempt them from doing this, of course providing that the voters side with Uber. If they don't, then they'll have to go through with the reclassification, and this would be bad business for Uber because treating their drivers as employees would mean paying for employee related benefits such as health insurance and sick pay, which of course would significantly increase the costs at a time where they're already struggling. This could then mean that they pass on these higher costs to consumers in the form of higher prices. As a result, Uber has threatened to leave California, which makes up 9% of their revenue, if this reclassification process does go through. I haven't talked about Spotify for a while actually. I think probably since they announced Joe Rogan, Kim Kardashian, DC Comics, podcasts and all that stuff. I know they clashed heads with Joe Budden recently, which ultimately meant he got up and left, but I didn't read too much into that. This week they're up 8% for reasons unbeknown to me. I guess from a weekly perspective they are trending upwards after coming out of bearish sentiment. They're also going to announce their earnings on Monday, so many people could be preparing themselves to beat them and so are stocking up on Spotify stock. But apart from that, I have no clue as to why they went up 8% this week, which actually concludes my top 2 performers and now brings me on to my top 2 losers. Goldman Sachs on Friday initiated Virgin Galactic with a neutral rating and a $19 price target. They're actually the first analyst not to give them a buy rating, saying that they're just not quite there yet. The analyst wrote long-term upside potential could be substantial if Virgin Galactic can capture the space travel and supersonic flight opportunity, but the time to realization of the opportunity is very long. They believe that Virgin Galactic won't see cash flow breaking even before the middle of the decade, and they might not see repeat customers for several years. And I agree that it is a long-term play, and I don't think any serious investor of the company was expecting any quick results. In my opinion, it's fair enough to say that this is a speculative stock, so a lot of people invested into them understand the risk of holding it. I can only imagine that the people who sold following the outbreak of this news were either taking profits or are not long-term investors. Goldman did also mention that Amazon's Blue Origin could exceed Virgin in certain ways, and I actually don't know a lot about Blue Origin, so it might be worth me taking a look at that as well. Once again, this correction presented itself as a buying opportunity and to average cost down, since you can now buy more for less, and that is exactly what I did. So I think I finally figured out how to pronounce the name of this company. I'm pretty sure it's new, like saying new, as in this pen is brand new. Like I'm pretty certain it's that. Anyway, new dropped 14% this week, and once again there wasn't any business news around that, or at least that I found anyway. The only logical reason that I can think would have caused this is because of how much they went up last week. After reporting an increase in scooter sales that I mentioned in my previous video, the stock shot up around 18%. So what this is telling me is that the market was evidently overhyped and a correction was due. It was actually technically overbought for about 2 weeks too, so this pullback was more than necessary, which personally for me is perfect. NIU is probably in my top 3 to 5 stocks that I own in terms of what I like about the business, how they're performing, and their near future projections. So it highlights a buying opportunity for me. I say that although I'm not going to actually buy just yet. I'm waiting for it to become oversold, and then that's where I'll top up on my already existing stocks. I'm actually hopefully going to post a stock analysis on this company next week, so that's something I'm looking forward to producing. But yeah, those are my top winners and losers this week, and as you saw, this week was a red one, I think heavily influenced by stimulus talks and of course the upcoming US presidential elections. For some people like myself, this, as I've said many times this video, offers an opportunity to pick up on some more stocks for less. And that's exactly what I did. And if you made it this far into the video and you're worried about being in the red, I promise you don't need to. Well, unless you've invested in poor companies, but apart from that, you don't need to worry. Look at this. I was down at my lowest about 22% in March after being invested in the market for just over a month. So you can probably imagine how shook I would have been. But in all honesty, I wasn't actually that scared. I remember telling my friend I was down like £500 and he started laughing, which is, fair enough. I probably would have started laughing too if he told me he was down that much. But learning what I did before investing, I would watch videos of people saying your gut is the most important thing about being an investor and that you shouldn't let your emotions control you. So even though I was, did it bricks, you can fill in the gap there, I was confident in the companies I had invested in, and so I rode out the crash in March, averaged down, and it seems as if it turned out alright. But yeah, I haven't made any new additions to my portfolio this week. I just topped up on what I already have. Hopefully I can edit a nice photo about now to display what I did top on and put that on the screen. Otherwise I will just leave it in the description below. And yeah, next week if any of these stocks or ETFs are in the oversold territory, then I'll do the same thing I did this week, which is pick up on some more. And on that note, I'm going to end the video there, and I'll catch you in the next one in a bit.